Wrapped on another work week. Started out doing a quick training refresh with my wife, who's going off on a 2-day teleprompter operating job. It's a studio shoot. And it's been a few months since the last prompter job. And due to OS updates, both my Chromebook and MacBook no longer support the prompter app I've been using the last couple years. So had to find a new app. I don't want to get in one of these monthly app reoccurring charges. So I'm in search of a buy once app that's hopefully Chromebook and MacBook compatible. Please let me know if you have any suggestions. Critical features for me are the ability to copy and paste from another application using the clipboard. A lot of these prompter programs only allow you to import plain text or PDF or Word doc, but I want to copy and paste on the fly. So you have a tab running with your word processor of your script, and the other tab is the prompter. Dual monitor support, less of an issue, and my prompter heads will mirror flip, so I don't necessarily need the app to do that. Next up, prep with my son for a multi-camera, single-person corporate interview. Son's getting promoted to mixing audio on this one, and Eric, who's been mixing sound for me on the last few, is jumping over to shoot B-roll on the gimbal. So everybody's getting a little bit of a promotion on this next one. So teaching them how to make a project in the sound devices mixer, synchronize and jam 2 cameras to the mixer, tune the electrosonics to clean frequencies, set mic pre levels and mix out levels, assign a left and a right so we can do boom on 1, lav on 2, feeding multiple cameras, spare batteries, charging everything, and I've got him diligently taking notes in his phone. So on the shoot day, instead of asking me a dozen questions, he can just refer to his notes. Setting up on location, downtown San Antonio. This is the Grand Hyatt, which is attached to the convention center. We're up on, I think it was the 3rd floor. 2 camera angles, city view. We only see our subject, not the interviewee. And my goal with this one was to light this with a single source as a key and just use the natural wrap and bounce from the windows in the background for backlight and fill. So ended up running 2 light mats, butted up to bake a 2-foot by 4-foot key source, and then just set the distance and dimmer intensity to match our overcast day on the outside. So we set up, and then it was about an hour before we rolled on our subject, and I was sweating it that the overcast marine layer would burn off, and we'd get direct sun, which would be too bright for these 2 light mats. But it worked out. It did get about a stop brighter, but we were still in the range. I had them quite a bit of ways from the subject, too. I want to say like 6 to 8 feet, and then ran them both in daylight at about 75% on the dimmer. And you can see the source on the right. I had to walk that one in a bit more just to get a little bit of extra punch as the cloud layer was thinning out. But from the interviewee's perspective, it was a continuous light source. There wasn't a visible gap. 1 producer on site and a second one remote viewing over Zoom. So, man, after running the live view every week for months now, this is the first time I've had to do Zoom in a good bit. And man, it is so stressful, such a pain. The live view, I just patched the SDI into it and turned it on. Everything else is handled on the remote side. I got burned on this one. Zoom did an auto update, and I thought I had bad video cables because we'd have picture for a bit and then it would get like scrambled and cut out. I'd restart Zoom, have picture for a bit. Turns out the auto update is no longer compatible with the UTAP. So I had to flip to the webcam on my MacBook and rotate my laptop to face the Flanders monitor. And that's how our remote clients were able to view the session. So frustrating, but it's how it goes on the day. I contacted LiveView to see if they had some kind of integration with Zoom. I'd happily lose money to run my LiveView instead of having to deal with a MacBook on set for Zoom feeds. But they said at the moment, Zoom is not supporting an external RTMP stream that the LiveView could push into a Zoom call. But please make that happen. I think a lot of us freelance camera people would utilize LiveView for these corporate Zoom calls. Client request was to shoot on prime lenses, and I had my prime kit available, but the way the background worked out, I had to avoid a Denny's restaurant in the background that had a giant side of the freeway sign we didn't want in frame. Even though it was out of focus, it was just yellow and kind of super distracting. So I had to back the cameras up to narrow the background field of view. My longest prime is an 85, so our wide cam was 85, and then I had to go to the zoom on the profile angle at 120 millimeter. So I'm thinking maybe my next prime purchase will be something in the longer range, like 110, 120. For loadout, the valet parked our van next to a red Aston Martin. I put my body between the crew and the car while we loaded out. Was able to go home, take a nap. Eric stayed and shot the B-roll at the conference portion of the day. I'm at FedEx now, backing up the footage and the client SSD. My messy countertop, life on the road. I love my makeshift van, although I know I got to take some time and get a little more organized here. But hey, it is what it is. The sausage factory, just clicked the fridge on because I got booked. Actually woke me up from my nap. I got booked tomorrow to cover another press conference. Eagle Pass, Texas, the one HEB in town has this amazing pollo asado setup, and they also have a Mexican bakery. I wish the grocery stores up by our house in San Antonio had a similar setup. For 3 consecutive weeks, Governor Abbott has visited Eagle Pass to give a press conference, and I assumed it was going to be in the same location as the previous 2 weeks. And last week, they parked us out at the street, and then we had like a half-mile walk across bumpy grass to the location down at the border. And I hand carried everything last time with the correspondent and producer. Had 3 people to carry all the kit, but it was pretty tiring. So this time my plan was to cart everything, including an umbrella, in case it's direct sun, so I can be in the shade. Also brought a little camping chair for myself. And then it was spitting rain a little bit, so I wanted to have a rain cover for the camera and a raincoat for myself. For about 15 years, my primary camera cart was a Magliner Senior with backstage modifications. I think it's upper and lower shelves, 24 inches wide by whatever the Senior length is. It's I think it's 5 feet long. It's a big, big cart. When I had a cube truck with a lift gate, it was obviously no problem to have that cart loaded to the gills, and it could just roll in and out of the big truck. And then if you refer back to my videos from 2019, I did a walkthrough of my previous small van, the little Transit Connect with a wheelchair ramp, where I could also roll that Magliner Senior in the back door. I was just limited on vertical height on the top shelf, but I could leave a camera clipped in on the top shelf. And that was my go-to news and corporate video rig for about 4 years in the Los Angeles market. I love that little van because working in high rises and city parking, I could park in the little compact spaces, and often I was stealth and low profile enough that I wouldn't have to go to a loading dock. I could just compact park and sneak in through the front lobby of the building in one trip before security would figure out what I was doing. I miss those days. Now the way I've got my current bigger van set up with the queen size sleeper bunk in the back, I don't have room for a Magliner Senior. So I've been running these rock and roller and onstage carts and built a couple of different camera shelves and top shelves to make things happen. None of which are the ideal cart for shooting news. You'll see coming up here at the presser, all of the media run these like beach style canvas like wheel. I don't even know what to call them. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you know what those carts are called. I know you can buy them on Amazon, but I'm thinking I may get one of those for running in sand and on grass where it's a pull with a handle versus push. Those things run better off-road. And then it's just like a big bin to throw your cases and tripod. So FX9 full-frame sensor is not the right tool for shooting at a press conference. With this kit zoom, 28 to 135 millimeter, running the camera in the 4K sensor crop at 135 mil, I'm just barely able to execute a close-up based on how far the media gets placed from the presenter. Although it's not the right tool, you'll see, it seems like all the bureaus here in Texas for the major networks are running the same camera or an FX6. Well, got my cart built and staged, still have an hour to burn, so went back to the van and thought I should just re-review the memo regarding the press conference. For the last 2 consecutive weeks, it has taken place on the same location at Shelby Park. Well, realizing now I'm at the wrong spot. They've changed location. We're further south on the border. I'm fortunately still about an hour early, so I just checked in with these 2 specialists, the Texas National Guard, and I am indeed now in the proper location. So lesson here to myself, never assume, thoroughly read the paperwork. And it was a good thing I was 2 hours early. So let's see, I still have 52 minutes to burn. So hanging out in this neighborhood just across from the gates, and then at 12:30 I'll be clear to cruise on in there. Last week we showed up a little late because we had to keep stopping to do live hits along the way, which is why I wanted to be here 2 hours early this time. And I don't have a producer or a reporter today. I'm running solo. Fox Freelancer just rolled up. Let's see if they let him in. Looks like no. Dean gave me a little tour of his rig a couple weeks ago. I love he's got bed linered 6-liter expedition, and his gas can is also bed linered. Well, got to the proper location, and turned out I was able to park close enough that I just walked my tripod over to claim a space, and then went back and did 2 more trips to hand carry camera, audio bag, and a boom pole stand. From when the gate opened to when this presser started was really tight. I had just finished setting up, and the governor was coming out on stage.
What you see now is the first stage of construction has already begun on what is 80. From your camera view, it goes all the way down the edge of here to those trees, all the way to the back, close to where the river is. A larger number of Texas Military Department personnel in Eagle Pass to operate more effectively and more efficiently. It will house up to 1,800 soldiers with the ability to expand up to 2,300.
The microphone bottom left with the gray furry is my setup on a boom pole. For these last 2 pressers, I switched from the stick mic to the shotgun, and I'm finding I'm getting better audio quality as the mic is typically not as close as I'd like it to be. 80 acres of dirt, not much to see, and none of this made air. The pushback continues. It's now no parking on the river side of the road, and it's always been no parking on this side. I'm in this lot. It's not posted. I think it's private property, but I've seen other media and folks set up over here, so we'll see if someone asks me to leave. But I think I'll be all right. So the plan here is I'm about an hour out, but we're gonna do a live bump shot here at the quiet border. And then once it gets too dark for the drone, I'll switch over to the FX9. I should have brought my EX3. I pulled it out of the truck for that previous corporate interview job where I had the 2 FX9s and the FX3 working, plus a bunch of grip and lighting. And then I thought about it this morning, I just didn't follow through. I should have put it in the truck. So instead I'm putting more hours and dust on my FX9. After the press conference, I repositioned to the river, and my assignment here was to have a live bump shot once an hour. I wasn't able to capture any of this off air, but this was kind of the idea. And sometimes I got lucky and I'd have migrant activity during my live shot, and then I tried to record things if it was happening when I wasn't up so that it could be used later on. A few years ago, DJI had an aircraft with an optical zoom, but I don't think there's anything like that on the market right now. I would love to have that, something with like a 8x or 10x or better optical zoom versus digital. If you know of something that does that, that's, you know, Mavic price point, please let me know in the comments below. I'm slowly getting more confident in my piloting abilities to get lower and closer while being respectful and compliant to never overflying vehicles or people. And the max distance now that my piloting position is from the aircraft is right around 200 yards, maybe 250 max. And during the day, it's a little bit more of a challenge to reacquire the visual line of sight on the aircraft. It's within my line of sight the whole time I'm flying, but just with a cloud-covered backdrop, it gets hard to see at that distance. I do really well at night or dusk when I have the strobe on the top of the aircraft. I know I'm within the regs and I'm flying over public land, and so far the Guard and the local law enforcement have been cool with what I've been doing. I've been bumped multiple times for breaking news. 1 more hour. So standing by. I think I'm gonna run out of daylight. Right now I'm going up in just the last few minutes of twilight. And then it gets too dark for that drone. It's too noisy even though I have a strobe to fly at night. So if that happens, I already have the FX9 tethered, but there's like no activity other than traffic driving through the foreground. It's just kind of a shot like this. Razor wire foreground, or concertina wire. I don't think that's razor wire. Just walk over and look. This is concertina wire. Not as violent.
All right, more help is on the way for the Texas border city at the center of the growing migrant crisis and the center of the dispute between Texas and Washington, D.C. Governor Gov Abbott announced plans to build a new military base at Eagle Pass to support up to 2,300 incoming National Guard soldiers pledged by Republican governors last month. The troops will help handle the influx of people entering the U.S. illegally at a popular crossing point in Eagle Pass. It's the latest move in Texas's battle with the Biden administration over securing the southern section of that border, an effort Governor Gov Abbott says is a constitutional right to defend Texas from an invasion. News Nation correspondent Allie Bradley is following the situation at the border and is live for us tonight. Allie, what can you tell us about this new facility?
Yeah, hey, Elizabeth. So first, let's start with the Biden administration basically handing Governor Abbott and the state of Texas a victory here. We know that Attorney General Ken Paxton gave DHS until the end of last week to prove that they own some of that land that Texas seized. We're talking about Shelby Park. Well, that deadline came and went pretty silently. Again, Texas kind of coming out on top here, and Governor Abbott moving full steam ahead with that new base that you're talking about there, Elizabeth. So here we go. We're looking at about 2,300 troops will be able to be housed in this forward operating base. We're told that it's going to span about 80 acres. And really what that shows, it is the most structurally sound and largest kind of military support base that we're seeing the governor put up under Operation Lone Star since his expansions really started. Now, when it comes to what we can expect with this forward operating base, here's what Governor Abbott had to say during his announcement.
This will increase the ability for a larger number of Texas Military Department personnel in Eagle Pass to operate more effectively and more efficiently. Before now, National Guard have been scattered across this entire region in cramped quarters, away from fellow soldiers and guard, sometimes traveling long distances to be able to do their job. What this is going to do is to dramatically improve the conditions for our soldiers.
Okay, so who is going to be making up that 2,300 soldier troop there? We're talking about Texas National Guard, obviously, Texas State Guard, but we've also got governors from all over sending troops as well. We know Governor Ron DeSantis and Governor Kristi Noem are both sending resources, but recently we've also heard Georgia Governor Brian Kemp say that he's going to be deploying some National Guard soldiers to Texas. We also know that New Hampshire's Governor Chris Sununu is also going to be sending over a handful of National Guard soldiers there also to support the governor's moves. Elizabeth, obviously something that has a lot of eyeballs on right now as the governor continues to expand there across Shelby Park. And we know that they're working in a multi-phase plan. So Shelby Park was phase one. We know that they are going to be expanding that, and they will continue as much as they need to. Elizabeth.